and welcome to the Techstrong AI podcast. I'm Amanda Rosani, and with me today, of course, is Mike Bizard. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a heavy week of AI everywhere you go, but we're going to dive into that. But so far, so good.
Definitely has been, and we're both getting back from tech conferences where that was a big focus, of course. So with that, starting out, you shared some information from the Microsoft Build 2024 conference. Specifically, they announced a Copilot for AI to help development teams, the Copilot for Azure. So can you share a little bit about this?
Yeah, Microsoft, they got a head start on everybody. There's just no two ways about it. The challenge sometimes is just sorting out a little bit between things that they announced and the way that they parse the verb is versus things that are still in a, shall we say, private preview. Some things are in a public preview versus what's generally available. So sometimes in some of this stuff, they would just say, we're going to do this, but they didn't actually say when or how. So but that said, they're clearly ahead of most folks still in terms of their use cases for generative AI. Copilots are now essentially permeating the entire portfolio. So we're starting to see those in for the management of Azure, which is a good thing in the sense that it will democratize that a little bit for the mere mortal IT folks. May not have to know as much about how to manage infrastructure as code. But as much as they did all that, there was also a few things in there where they were talking about AI for more average folks who are going to go just, take a document that they create and create or train an LLM to do that. And then they'll have the LLM go automate a process. So it felt like they were signaling that they were going to take AI well beyond just kind of, let me help my office documents or help me get a coder to automate some things for creating, a website, whatever it may be. But the signal was clear that, we're going well beyond just the normal base of folks, and we're trying to empower end users to do things that maybe in the past required an IT professional.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that more and more from all the big companies that are trying to go beyond that original realm.
Yeah. Not quite clear exactly how that dance is going to play out because, everybody's job functions are going to evolve. I think everybody seems committed to the fact that everybody's going to have a job. It's just going to be different, and the relationships are going to be somewhat tenuous still. So we still need to figure all that stuff out. A lot of folks are, not saying that we're going to replace developers anytime soon, but there are other folks who are kind of like, hell bent on, we're going to change the world and see what happens. I thought, the keynote from the Microsoft CEO was solid this year. Wasn't too light. And as they say, and sometimes in the past, I think there's been a tendency where there's so many things that they are trying to roll through that they don't give the proper level of due accord. So, sometimes when I've been to that show, it's kind of like, here's the long list of all the things we're announcing in full note and a keynote. See you later. So there was at least some perspective provided this year, which I think a lot of the people who attended enjoyed. You can catch it online still and check out what I'm saying. Of course, there's, I think they announced more than 50 products, and I would say at least 2/3 of them had some sort of AI component into them. So, the race is on.
Yeah, and just from what I'm hearing, I don't see how the developer jobs could go by the wayside anytime soon. Now, they're certainly going to be more efficient utilizing these tools, but I don't think AI is anywhere near the ability to just replace the developers.
I mean, and I think that's the core to it, right? I mean, Microsoft is essentially saying that developers will become 50% more efficient. Well, that's great, but efficient doesn't always lead to more code being written because, code requires some level of inspiration at the time, and I have to have an idea. But at the very least, a lot of the toil that gets in the way of having a great idea should be reduced. So I don't know if that means developers are just going to have more time to play games or whether or not they're actually going to write more interesting applications. But folks are promising an application renaissance where there's going to be more apps developed in the next 2 years than in the last 40. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to the next conference. There were so many conferences going on. IBM Think was another big one. And you shared some information from that about a new platform called IBM Concert. And this promises to extend the scope of AI ambitions. So can you share a little bit there?
Yeah, I mean, I think IBM went from kind of leading the AI charge to kind of chasing after everybody else a little bit. So this was an effort to kind of put themselves back in the fray, as it were, in a leading position. Concert is essentially a centralized IT platform that makes use of LLMs such as Granite to pull in data from everything. Right now, they're leading up with the core platforms they have from Red Hat and other places to pull IT data into a way that makes it easy to centralize the management of IT across a hybrid cloud computing environment, which is a pretty cool and a pretty ambitious use case for Gen AI. So we'll see how that all plays out. I think it's still a little bit early, but it's not clear to me that, when I look at it today, IBM went from, King of Jeopardy to what's starting to feel a little bit like an also-ran, maybe, with, Microsoft, Google, AWS, Meta, and everybody else kind of banging the drum and leading the charge. So I thought the IBM Think conference was a good step in the right direction, but clearly they need to do more faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, they led the charge last year with their big Watson X announcement. And, it's a huge race between all these companies. Who's going to be on top? Who's going to have the next best offering?
Yeah, or just make it easier to operationalize. I think a lot of people right now are kind of like, yep, Gen AI, we get it. Now, can somebody make this easy?
Mm-hmm. Simplify the process. So moving on, GPU optimization. This is a big topic amongst business leaders. And you recently shared an article about SkyMail emerging from stealth to share a hybrid GPU platform for AI models. So can you share a little bit about that news?
Yeah, I mean, this thing is early days, but it's interesting tech. So I felt it was worth calling out. There's a shortage of GPUs. We all know that. So what they're saying is that you can split the inference model a little bit and only run a portion of it locally on an endpoint or in a data center, and that it can then go invoke some cloud resources that it may need to run additionally. And this is relevant because it means that I can right-size the inference engine to whatever platform that I happen to have. So I'm not trying to overload an inference engine onto something that can't handle it. And I'm not stuck in a position where I'm trying to go find higher end GPUs that I cannot find in the first place. So this kind of, lets me kind of work towards a middle ground a little bit. There may come a day when GPUs are widely available and inexpensive, but in the short term, it looks like we need tools like this to kind of find a way to maximize and optimize the limited resources we have. And of course, a lot of folks are moving inference engines off of GPUs to something else, but then you sacrifice the parallelization capabilities that's inherent in the GPU. So I think these guys are probably onto something that's a good idea. I don't know if somebody else will do something similar, but let's say this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we're hearing from a few smaller companies out there that are trying to solve this issue, but nothing seems really big at the moment.
Yeah. In the meantime, NVIDIA is just racking up profits left, right, and center. And so congratulations to them. But, IT industry abhors a vacuum. And right now it seems like there's one here in the GPU space.
Absolutely. So this is an interesting survey that recently posted on Techstrong AI, and it's about women tech leaders appearing to outpace male peers in generative AI adoption. So this survey showed that when it comes to adopting these tools, that women appear to be quicker to do so and are looking for ways to be more efficient. and therefore willing to try out new things and be a little bit riskier in their decisions, which is coming out to help them, as it appears.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts?
I have a pet theory about this, but since I am not one of the survey respondents, I'd love to get your take on it a little bit. I mean, what do you think is going on? And we have a colleague, Bonnie Schneider, who can't get enough of all things Gen AI, and she's like at the forefront of all that stuff and playing around with things. But what is your sense of is there a sort of a gender gap emerging here, or what's going on?
I'm not sure if it's a gender gap aversion. I think it has to, and in the survey, it shows that there are perhaps some areas where women are just more willing to adopt this technology to help them if they don't understand something versus the men. So, and, not as scared to try a new tool. So for me, I love all things AI as well. I have the new version of the ChatGPT 4.0. I have various other things I like to try out. Anytime there's a new tool, I'm all about trying it out, see if it's going to help me. And I think both with men and women, for that skills gap, that generative AI especially is helpful to bridge that area and make things easier. It just appears from this survey anyway that women are more likely to try to use it to help.
All right. Well, my pet theory goes to the Barbie movie, which has made it pretty clear that there's a lot going on in the average daily life of a woman as she kind of balances all those requirements that are impinged on her by her family, husband, society in general. So I think that there's a certain appeal around Gen AI that just says, so many hours in the day, I really want to kind of maximize them. I got a lot going on, and anything that kind of eliminates toil and reduces friction is going to be, they're going to be at the front of the line.
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, women generally are juggling a whole lot between work and personal and family. And so any tools to help make that easier is going to be embraced.
All right. Well, there we are. It's not rocket science. It's just good old common sense.
Absolutely. And last on our list today is issues with trusting AI, which of course there's lots of issues around trusting AI. And Immersive Labs issued a report about a contest where they had to prompt an AI bot and see if it would give them secure information. And almost, I think, over 80% were able to get secure information. And as it got harder, even with the harder tests about, I can't remember exact percentages, but it was a pretty large percentage, could even crack through those harder tests to get the AI bots to divulge secure information. So, of course, this is a concern. If it's that easy to get secure information, what can business leaders do?
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to take a hard look at this. I mean, so if you look at the report, what they're saying is they got, 30,000 or more people involved. And they said, there's a secret somewhere in this LLM. And people started just, toying around with ways to kind of, manipulate the LLM into giving up the secret, because theoretically you're supposed to have some controls around that. But turns out people are pretty clever. So, sometimes they just ask straight away, what was the password or the secret. In other ways, they were using essentially social engineering techniques to kind of tease it out of the LLM. And some people would do that by, they would ask the LLM to help them write a poem that happened to be about sensitive data, or it would be something involving a story or a narrative. But some of the ways they went about doing it were pretty creative, and it just shows that humans have a certain level of ingenuity when it comes to these kind of things. And of course, we've seen the bad guys be pretty good at social engineering techniques, and if they apply that to LLMs, well, they might be able to pull out all kinds of sensitive information that they're not supposed to have. So the report is just, Immersive Labs is all about training. So they were just trying to highlight the fact that, we need different ways of thinking about data loss protection and data loss leakage, because that seems to be at play here. And I think a lot of companies will take a giant step back, because if you don't know exactly where that data is going to kind of manifest itself and how it's going to manifest itself, the costs for doing that are pretty high. And yet, as we all know, every end user is at home playing with stuff, and there's a whole shadow chat GPT LLM process going on. So I got a bad feeling that this is going to be kind of one of those incidents where it's only a matter of time before something very bad happens.
Yes, and I really am not sure what the solution would be. I mean, certainly it's proven that humans are much more intelligent than the AI at this time, So how we're going to address this, I know there's lots of laws and regulations trying to be formed, but, laws and regulations don't stop things from happening. So, it's an issue.
I think it may have to come with, like a little thing that says, a label. It says use at your own risk, because I think we tend to trust these services more than we should, both in terms of, the output itself, but also, how secure they are, because, well, we think that, there's these big companies behind it, but I think we're all kind of rushing down this road without necessarily thinking through all the subtle nuances, and we're going to skin our knees. There's just no two ways about it.
Yep. Well, that does it with our list of AI topics for today. And of course, if you are more interested to get all the details of any of those surveys or the information from various conferences, go to Techstrong AI or DevOps.com is where some of those articles were posted, and that'll fill you in on the gaps. Meanwhile, have a wonderful week. And thanks,
all right,
Mike.
folks. And as always, all things AI, be careful out there.